All right, so now I'm going to talk about the seventh house with synastry. A lot of times when people think about relationships, the seventh house is the first place we're going to go to because of the descendant sign, of course. But I also let folks know seventh house, yes, we talk about partnership, but also contracts, business partnerships there. Seventh house, also traditionally the house of enemies. But what I also want people to think about with the seventh house, it's not so much coming together and being the same person in the way people think. The seventh house should be a place in which you get to see complementary types of energy a person can bring to you in order to form partnership. Partnership is not the best when you have the same thing. Partnership is actually the best when there is a little bit of polarity. Okay, so I do want to, preface that with, that information. Also, as I said in the other videos, the first through sixth houses, if you missed those when I talked about synastry, if someone doesn't want you or you don't want them, it does not matter that your sun is in their seventh house, your Mercury is in their 12th house, right? There might be contact, there might be impact, there might be some type of, jolt, connection, interaction, but it does not mean you are going to be in a fairy tale relationship. I'm very much a realistic type of astrologer, in that regard. The sun. Okay. So the sun person can bring to the seventh house person, they can allow their to kind of like emerge in the way in which the house person is seen. The sun person brings their traits. The sun person brings what they are to the situation, where the house person starts to feel a sense of they can integrate a little bit more. That what this person represents can give them a greater sense of what they are maybe missing in a relationship or missing in that type of union that they may have with someone else. So it could be like a sun in Pisces person comes to the Pisces descendant person, right? Seventh house. And that sun person kind of brings out within that person, hey, you can be safe here. You can, let go of the need to have everything be organized and perfect. This is a relationship. Go with the flow. I'm safe. I'm here to help you understand that this is something that we don't have to, be so hyper focused on the way it looks. Let's just be. Because remember, if you have, we're using whole signs, you have Pisces energy in your seventh house, that means you're a Virgo rising. So that's the way in which that sun is coming to kind of shine light on things that you may not have or that you may not realize can be possible within a relationship. Now the moon, person can bring to the house person a recognition of that person's emotional nature. You can understand a little bit more how their emotions may impact the house person, because they're bringing their own level of how they respond to things to you. They are bringing even maybe emotional awareness to the relationship. Maybe they're teaching or showing you, or it could be a situation where the person's very emotional, or the person has a lot of unresolved issues, because I'm only talking about one planet here. We could have a lot of other things happening, but regardless, that moon person coming there helps you understand the relationship, the importance, purpose, and the necessary need to unpack how someone else's emotional response can impact that relationship for good or bad. Now, Mercury, the Mercury planet person coming to the person's seventh house, Mercury there, again, we're not just talking relationships. It could be a contract that you have with someone else. It represents like a good flow of information. You might be on the same page about things. It is easy to see where that other person is coming from. You don't feel like they're trying to, get over on you or nickel and dime you. It can feel like, okay, we're coming together to do this. We're collaborating. Mercury can bring also this idea of, feeling heard within the partnership, within the union, feeling that this person is listening to what you want, listening to, and it's also can be a situation where there is some through communication, there is reciprocity. I talk a lot about seventh house in terms of what are you getting and what are they getting, and is it equal, right? Venus. Now that can definitely be a really high impact placement because Venus rules the seventh house. So, but the Venus planet person is coming there to bring a sense of value to the partnership, a sense of, awareness of the importance of this working. They might, not in an aggressive way, not like Mars, but Venus person may pursue the kind of conditions of the relationship. Whereas Mercury is about that communication, Venus is around that forming a sense of we have a bond. There is some level of, commitment or partnership that we should indulge in together. So again, Venus is not going to push you, but Venus can be very suggestive. It can be very like, we should go out, or we should do this, or we should have a business together, or we should do this. Really suggestive sometimes. There also could be the same type. You might like. The Venus person brings that energy, but with each other, there may be a same sense of admiration or respect, or the same attributes you may like within each other in order to make the partnership flow and work for your best interest. Mars can pursue or it can clash. The Mars person can bring conflict or a sense of like a desire to kind of initiate something. And it can sometimes be like a pushy energy, but it can be like you're in a relationship, but that person is a little bit more dominant. That person is the one that's like, no, we should do this, or no, we should move here, right? The Mars person may have a little bit more influence. It doesn't mean you have to be like this overbearing person, but it just could be personality type. And it just could be in that relationship, that's the way that you engage with each other for good or bad. But also the Mars person could be the initiator of the union, of the relationship, or the way in which that guides the kind of relationship that you have. You could be more the leader in the relationship, and that could be a reason for that. It doesn't always have to mean that person is being, controlling. And Mars can definitely bring, like, there could be an attraction level there as well. The Jupiter person can bring a positive way of expanding your understanding of relationships, the way in which you view them. This person can be more worldly, but there could be growth within the relationship. There could be lessons learned because of the experiences that you go on together. The Jupiter person could maybe open your mind up a little bit more, or show or teach you something that allows for you to see that relationships don't have to be transactional. Relationships can be ones in which you grow, you expand together. It can be one in which you are, becoming a better version of yourself within that relationship because you grow in some way, shape, or form. The Jupiter person can also be the more enthusiastic one about the relationship too. Saturn. Okay. The Saturn person can bring a seriousness to the relationship. The Saturn person can bring delays, limitations as well. Like, it can be a situation of like, I think you need to grow up, or I think that, I'm not going to take this seriously until you understand what relationships really mean. It's almost like the Saturn person has terms and conditions for the seventh house person in order for there to be a level of understanding. The Saturn person may require a lot from you to almost kind of prove yourself in the relationship, or that you're serious. The Saturn person may say there are things that you need to understand more. They may kind of also give you a sense of stability, not stability, but there's this expectation. So some people can kind of grow up a little bit more if you're seeking a long-term relationship. If you're not seeking a long-term relationship, this is where you can have a disconnect. Uranus can be disruptive or engaging, right? Surprise influence on you in relationships. Maybe it's a different type of relationship. It is not a defined relationship. The course of the partnership may also push you to be more individualized, understand what's unique and different about you. The person can bring forth, like in the relationship, a little bit more freedom than you've had in the past. Neptune sounds beautiful, idealism, but Neptune can be the rose-colored glasses. We know that the nature of the relationship can be a little nebulous, a little uncertain, a little unclear. But it also can bring like this is the person, like, you always think like highly of them, even if there was like difficulties in the relationship, because they brought you a sense of softness, or a sense of, things being very, not difficult. Neptune brings forth this kind of dreamy aspect, this kind of romantic type of themes. So it also could be the inability to see clearly. So again, it depends on what else is going on the chart, but Neptune there can indicate that. Like, that was this person brought me so much peace, or this person, I want to think highly of them, even if you shouldn't. And Pluto, lastly, if that Pluto person transform the nature of the flow of the relationship, how you view relationships, this person has a big impact for good or bad. For some people it can be kind of devastating, depends. But also it can be secret, secret or hidden dynamics of your relationship as well. Things that aren't really out in the open can sometimes be that Pluto person that is in your seventh house. But again, all of this is relative to what else is happening within charts, aspects between you two, etc. Now, the eighth house is a very serious place. Now, I do want to first start off by talking about, if we're looking at the eighth house from a traditional lens, we're talking more about the literal things: death, taxes, rebirth, joint assets, right? The eighth house dealing with those types of concepts. Now, in the traditional astrology, Mars is the ruler of the eighth house. That's it. In modern astrology, we accept that Pluto is also the co-ruler of the eighth house, which when you get to Pluto, that's when you get the undercurrents of things, you get the psychological part of things, you get the more secretive part. We know Mars is more bold. So when we look at that from the modern context, I talk a lot about how the eighth house is a house of binding. It is the house where we are dealing with this concept of also things that could be secret. The eighth house is this idea of things that, yes, you can still talk about joint assets and inheritance and things, which is more of that traditional lens. But through the eighth house in modern astrology, it becomes more transformative. Because if we're thinking about Pluto and what Pluto it wants to consume, Mars wants to go, and those planets can do that dance together. Okay. We also can look at it. There's been a discrepancy. Some people are like, well, when you talk about the topic of sex, is that fifth or eighth house, right? Yes, fifth house is pleasure. It is dating. It's flirting. It's the fun part of it. But when we talk about actual intimacy, right, we also can look at the eighth house. If we're talking about sex in terms of power dynamics, true intimacy, you can look towards the eighth house. Now, some people may say that's an oversimplification just because of Pluto and Mars there, but we know what Pluto and Mars can involve. So that's why I said when you're thinking of people's attitudes in terms of the intimacy of something, joining with someone, binding, that is eighth house in nature. And then that's not all the eighth house is. I want to be very clear. But when I was doing the research around people's, the discrepancy between fifth versus eighth, I looked to this book that a lot of astrologers use. And this book here, you can look up any topic. You can look through, it's in alphabetical order. You can look through the houses. You can look through the planets. You can look through, it has like a little glossary, right? So when you do look up sex, you do see eighth house references. You see Pluto references. When you look up the eighth house, you do see that. The book, actually, when you look it up, it does refer to both eighth and fifth house. Okay. So again, you can choose what you prefer to do, but there is evidence that you can use either one. But again, it's going to be the difference, right? The fifth house is the playful part of it. When we're talking about actual power dynamics and people who may use sex through a transformative or something regarding power dynamics in that regard. And I'm not talking about bad power, but I'm just talking about that allure, that draw, that even that quality of being really drawn into someone. It can be eighth. Remember, it's across from the second house. The second house isn't just money, it's also sensuality. So this might be a very long video. So I did want to say that first. I might have to split this in two. I gave a disclaimer, so I got to do this in 6 minutes. Okay. So the sun. If someone's sun is coming to your eighth house, this person may elevate you in some way or illuminate things that you have hidden, for good or bad, traits about yourself that maybe you didn't realize, or triggers, or it could be good things. So the sun is there to bring some sort of light, illuminate, not in the same way Jupiter might, that's a different conversation, but the sun there can bring this awareness of who you are and what you represent and kind of things that you might have buried underneath. The moon there can represent someone's moon in your eighth house, very deep feelings. There's going to be some type of residual energy from this person, more than likely. This could be like you didn't think about something emotional until this person came. There can be an emotional awakening, and it's deep. Remember, we're talking about eighth house joining up. It requires there to be a level of awareness of the ways in which you shift, in the way in which you approach your emotion, your attachment style, even based on this situation. It could be psychological in some ways as well. Mercury, someone's Mercury in your eighth house, this person may ask probing questions, meaning like if you're receptive to it, they may ask you deeper things. They may want to get into your mind a little bit more. They can also bring they can bring up ideas and things to you that can sometimes be quite hard to get or obtain, but they can also introduce to you the idea of the importance of taking things seriously or, joining, being open to this level of accepting something, right? When we talk about the eighth house, if we talk about joint assets, money, other people's money, the ability to receive that information, that ability to communicate with someone and listen to their advice about those types of matters. That's why I say Synastry is not just this love affair. It can be your financial advisor. Synastry can be, your friend, right? These people will ask you questions you may have never thought about before. Venus. So with Venus in someone's eighth house can represent like you're coming to bring value to their sense of ability to transform themselves financially. House person feels that they're being given something, or they feel that there is a level of, oh, you're relieving me from something. I don't have to do this all by myself. Okay. Now, again, it depends on what else is there, whether that's a great thing or not, because sometimes you get people that overgive, especially if Jupiter is there as well. There's some Jupiter energy between the charts. Now, Mars here can be dominant energy, the energy of, the person kind of creates an inner stir, like it stirs something within you when someone's Mars is in your eighth house. They stir something in you, and it can be quite, dealing with attraction. It can deal with levels of power, dynamics, influence, things like that. But the Mars person, coming to your eighth house, Mars rules the eighth house. So this is going to be a very strong energy and, way in which this person impacts you. It can explain sometimes why some people are so influential on someone else. I would always look at what Mars and Pluto was doing. So if we're talking about Jupiter here can bring just like Venus can bring value or, harmony in terms of joint assets, money, bringing things together. But when you look at Jupiter, Jupiter can bring blessings. Like the Jupiter individual is already coming with a certain level of awareness or experience to the 8th house person. Now, if we look at the 8th house from a modern context, it can also be this level of transformation, adapting yourself to a way in which you are evolving in more powerful ways. The Jupiter person can bring wisdom, experiences, or just simply have more of a ability, a belief in you. Remember, we talk about Jupiter sometimes as this belief system type of thing. Saturn to someone's 8th house can be kind of like legacy energy. You could sometimes like family members, or people that have children together, something like that, because Saturn can represent this kind of idea of legacy, lineage, things like that. But also they bring a reality of which you should take seriously. Saturn can bring a reality of what it is that you actually can embody and what you can become and what you're able to obtain through dedication, through being someone who is steady in terms of working towards something. Right, so Saturn there can also bring like this awareness in someone of, you have to dig deeper. You've been too surface level. Saturn's there to give you that reality check. Now, Uranus can represent like a interesting dynamic. It could be strange, like it could be like a strange connection, someone who in some way fascinates you. There could be a fixation type of energy as well. There could be difficulty with fully aligning with each other emotionally. The Uranus person coming there can stir up things in a way that make you feel a little unsure or uncertain of where you actually, you have to kind of recalibrate what you think is deep, recalibrate what you think is important. Concepts of people come to you with relationship situations or in a relationship where the Uranus person can bring a level of what you thought you knew you don't know, and they kind of challenge you in that way. Example, I'm not going to go into details. Neptune could be spiritual evolving to transformation to become more. I say Neptune in the 12th is more integration, but if we're talking about Neptune person coming to the 8th house, it can be this person, and it doesn't mean they're there to stay, but they allow for you to bring a certain level of faith and a sense of awareness of the inner workings of yourself in order for you to heal. So you can sometimes see healing through that. And it doesn't mean the person is a healer. It just means they may have that impact on you. Someone's Pluto in your 8th house can bring this person can be very transformative in terms of your inner emotions, but also it can shake you up and devastate, or it can elevate. It can be addicting. It can be toxic. It can be extreme energy. It can feel like this person made such an impact, but it's not a surface level one. It's not fun. It is one in which there's a psychological approach as well. There is some level in which this person kind of touches your soul, or this person has a lasting impact on you in some way, shape, or form in which you may never be the same, for good or bad. All right, so I want to talk about the 9th house in Synastry. So the 9th house, as we know, is a house that is associated with our beliefs, philosophy, sense of discovery, our exposure, morals, things that are outside of what we're born into is 9th house, right? So think of it as this kind of journey, this kind of excursion, travel, foreign energy, 9th house. So Synastry can be important here because it can show, is there a way in which the planet person is bringing new awareness, new experiences to the house person? So with the sun, it could represent what the sun person embodies is something that the house person benefits from, because the sun person is bringing a sense of awareness or a new way of thinking or looking at something that could really trigger something in the house person where they want to experience more or be more. If the sun is our consciousness, our self, the sun person can help you want to be more. It doesn't mean you want to be like them, but you can see aspects of this person where you're like, oh wow, because this person is this, they're able to experience, or they're able to hold true to their values in the way in which they want to live. Now, if the moon a moon planet, right, in someone's 9th house can represent this person. The moon person represents an energy of sense of adventure. Like they can nurture the house person's sense of adventure. They may feel willing to support the house person's, journeys or things, higher learning, or, going out into the world. The moon person, again, we're not talking just romantic relationships. The moon person could be a sibling, it could be an aunt, it could be someone saying, no, go out there, go do that, go travel, go see the world. Or yeah, you're right in your beliefs, right? So the moon person can have an understanding of how you navigate the world, right? And you feel kind of accepted in that regard. The Mercury, right? Mercury could represent the Mercury house, your Mercury person coming to the 9th person's house could represent The Mercury person says what's on their mind, but inspires you to have that kind of same level of like, you know, energy and confidence in what it is that you believe. The Mercury person can help you. And again, doesn't mean that they're coming there to say, hey, I'm here to help you. But the Mercury person is a representative of what it looks like when you are able to stand true in what it is that you think and what you believe, and you're not afraid to kind of voice it. So getting kind of some type of confidence in terms of the way in which you communicate, verbalize your own beliefs about the way you live, or your beliefs about the way life is. Those types of things can be that. They also can facilitate some type of learning experience as well for you with it, when there's the Mercury person for the house person. Inspires your ideas in terms of the way in which you look at things in a worldly sense. The Venus person can represent, romantic opportunities, a person coming to you, coming to the house person. You're from a different background, different country, or there's something different, or just viewed as foreign. Doesn't mean you have to actually be foreign, or from a different region than them. It's something coming to the house person where they are able to receive and see opportunity to be in collaboration, be in union with someone who may be a little bit different from them in some way. The Venus person can influence the house person. Maybe the house person feels a desire or an openness to explore or travel with the Venus person. Similar values, similar things you may want to obtain from the world. With Mars may be challenging your beliefs, or challenging the beliefs of the house person. Like the Mars planet person it doesn't mean that they're doing it intentionally, but it can be like there be conflict. This could be the person in your family that you always argue with over religion or beliefs, spirituality, just ways of being, ways of thinking about life itself. And so, but also again, everything is duality, every single thing. The Mars person could also influence you to do what they did, right? So you could see, you look at the outward experience of the Mars person as the house person. It could be, for example, your cousin, went to the Navy. I don't know. And you're like, oh, I want to do that too. Or, your mom, traveled abroad when she was in college. And you're like, I want to do that too. So the Mars person, you can also look at their actions. You can look at something they've done as a way in which you want to also experience the world and have opportunities beyond what is assigned to you. All right. And what's familiar to you. Ninth house is not familiar. Jupiter, the Jupiter person can expose you to journeys together. They can bring experience, bring awareness of things that you have yet to see. Hey, you haven't seen this yet. Hey, you haven't done this yet. There's a sense, again, every time I talk about Jupiter, I talk about the optimism, the excitement, when we talk about Jupiter energy, especially when we are talking about synastry. And so that Jupiter person can come and bring that to you, bring experiences, bringing opportunities as well. Like, hey, I have an opportunity. And, those things are outside of the realm of what you're used to. Saturn can represent a mentor. The Saturn planet, the Saturn person going to someone's house could represent a mentor, a more experienced individual. And again, we're not only talking about synastry in terms of romance. This could be someone who is there to guide you. You might be afraid or apprehensive about doing something, and this person can serve as some type of like, either older person or more experienced person who helped you navigate new terrain, those types of things. Uranus can represent exposure to a new belief system. The Uranus planet, okay, the Uranus person coming to the ninth house person can represent giving you a new belief, a new exposure to a new way of thinking. Uranus can radicalize you. And I'm not saying that the Uranus planet person is a radical, but it means in terms of your relationship, in terms of your interaction with them, the Uranus person might be showing them something revolutionary that they've never seen before. And now it exposes and opens you up to the ways in which you want to navigate life and the principles in which you want to behave, believe, and the way in which you choose to respond to the world around you. Because remember, also the ninth house can represent publication, can represent speaking, those types of things as well. So it could represent, you having more, not a voice in terms of Mercury, but Uranus can mean it jolts you. I like to use that word when we're talking about Uranus into a way of which you are able to see different ways of approaching things. So we're talking about a different way of approaching your belief systems. Now, Neptune, the Neptune planet person can bring or provide uplifting energy in terms of your pursuits and what you want to do, benevolence, charity, helping you. It's as simple as someone donating money for you to do something you've always wanted to do. Maybe you need more money in order to really travel, or you need more, there's people like, oh, I'm gonna set up a fund for you so that you can go travel abroad. You just need $1,000 more. Like, Neptune can sometimes bring people who are giving some level of charity. They are, being very compassionate, something of that nature. They want to foster and they want to provide, relieve you of things that can be difficult. We're dealing with Neptune energy. However, Neptune can also provide, bring forth, there also can be, differences in navigating what to believe. You can have Neptune that can be deceptive. It can be clouding your views, your beliefs. So I always say with any type of planning, type of aspect, don't only look at the positive, like look at what else it can mean, because you can have different people that represent different things to you, right? You can have somebody who has that Neptune in your ninth house and they provide something positive, and someone that provides a negative experience. Pluto can represent, the Pluto person brings changes, major changes in the way in which you navigate the world. It can sometimes drive you into a new way, a new belief, good or bad. I give an example of, okay, someone's Pluto, the Pluto person going to in someone's ninth house could sometimes be like a toxic parent, right? Ninth house is away from home, right? We're talking, when we start getting away from that third, fourth house, and we're going into the top houses, we're away from home. We're away from where we were born. So ninth house, especially when it comes to exploration and it comes to like really the ability to drive oneself to new understandings, it can be someone that, Pluto can be a negative sometimes, where the person transforms the way in which you want to get away. You want to get away from something. But again, it doesn't always have to be negative. Sometimes Pluto can just mean someone who's dramatically changed the course of your direction. You now know what your purpose is. You now know what you want to do, because that Pluto person maybe had more of a command of the world, or they understood things a little bit more in a serious, intense way, and it really pushed and showed you the importance of going in a direction that allows for you to find things that are meaningful, and being able to go through the difficult things in order to meet, the true, aspirations that you have outside of the things that people have given to you. All right, the 10th house of career, ambition, long-term goals, longevity, those types of things. Our reputation, our legacy, what do people remember about us, can be 10th house. It's not just like your actual career. That is a huge association, but it also could be the things that we hold, the things that people remember about us, which is why, the midheaven is typically associated with 10th house when you use Placidus. But of course, we know with whole signs, your midheaven does not have to be in the 10th house. But let's go. All right. So when we're talking about 10th house energy, it can be the way in which someone helps, cultivate, reinforce the goals that you have. Remember, the 10th house, the highest point in the chart. So we're dealing with image, public, right? This kind of midheaven is public image, but the 10th house is also this image of like, what do people see? What does the world see? Right? So when we jump into it, we're going to look at the sun first. Of course, the sun person can bring self-awareness to the achievements that you have already done. A lot of times people don't always see themselves clearly. So sometimes the sun person comes there and maybe they embody some of these things, but the sun person can also show the 10th house person like, no, you're good. Look, right? Like, I can do this. You can do this too. There may be themes of admiring either way, but most of the time the house person admiring the sun person in some way, shape, or form because of their achievements, but also not so the achievements because of what they showcase. Remember, the sun is your traits, conscious traits. So sometimes the house person gets energy from the sun person because the sun person can showcase things that they also view as successful, or there's qualities about them where they're like, if I could do that, or if I could be like them, I might also be able to achieve the things that I want. The moon person is, again, traditionally in astrology, the moon had a much more public facing association. So the moon person could be quite influential. They could be like your right hand, man type of person. They could be the person that is very supportive. This person has influence over your legacy, right? This person has influence over the way in which you are, cared for, or the way people attach themselves to you. Protective energy sometimes. They might even protect your reputation if someone's moon is in your house. Career, protect your career. Supportive. Sometimes can be an emotional trigger. You could have people where maybe they want so much for you that's like, I want to please them. I want to make them happy. But that's what sometimes the moon can represent there. Mercury, the Mercury person, the house person can learn from the Mercury person. The Mercury person may be really good with helping them translate or understand their goals, talking through their goals as a trusted advisor type of thing. Again, when we talked about this, it's not just romance. The Mercury person could be an advisor, how to be successful. It could be a coach, life coach type of situation where you bond, you connect through that. But the house person may trust the Mercury person's authority on matters that are serious, that are dealing with their goals, dealing with things that they want to achieve. Venus, the Venus person. Venus person comes there, and it can represent the Venus person may show the house person how to gain or attract, money, or how to play the game, so to speak, in terms of like people, noticing them in terms of their reputation, in terms of their work. The Venus person could even improve the reputation of the house person. There could be shared values on what achievement means. Jupiter, I always talk about enthusiasm, Jupiter, optimism, but the Jupiter person can be optimistic about the house person's goals, excited. They could even maybe be able to provide an opportunity for that person to really, hey, like, you've always wanted to do this. I have a business. Hey, you've always wanted to do this. I know someone who, or hey, I was thinking about you. I have this opportunity, but it's in line with your goals. It's not the energy of like, hey, I just have a job for you. It's a 10th house energy. It has to be more in line with the things in which you have targeted or identified as ambitions. Okay. But again, I always talk about the inverse. There also could be, sometimes you get people that are opportunistic as well. So you do have to watch it. Anything that I'm describing, I always tell people there's duality to everything. Just because something sounds good, what is the flip inverse of it as well? So, okay, now we're talking about Saturn. Now, Saturn can represent, the Saturn person can bring you a heightened sense of status or reputation because of your association with them. Whereas Venus, I said, like, they can show you by social grace, the moves, how to, know the right people, all of those things. But Saturn, it could represent, maybe the Saturn person is more established, or the Saturn person has more authority, reputation, more influence in some way. But the person could also be more serious about your goals even than you are. The Saturn person is more serious, and there can be more of a like, let's do this, you should do this, or this would look better if you operate this way. So it can sometimes be, again, we talk about Saturn, it can be very direct, disciplinarian energy, or authoritative is probably a better word, like authority, like, why don't you come do this, or why don't you go do that? And sometimes you can see that, especially in like relationships with parents and kids, are like, you should do this is better for you long term, you should do this occupation. So you could sometimes see those types of things. Neptune, the Neptune person can help the 10th house person perhaps attain their dreams, dream a little bit bigger. Hey, you've been working at this job for 10 years. It's not really what you want to do. You've always wanted to do this. Why don't you try this other situation, this other thing? So Neptune can bring that sort of, again, Neptune's not serious energy. It's not trying to lock you into anything. It's trying to help you see the possibilities. But again, there's always the inverse. Depending on what else is happening between you and that person's chart, it could be deceptive. It could be a person that kind of lures you away from your dreams. Remember, we talked about Neptune, that escapism energy. Uranus is a disruptor. I say that all the time. So the Uranus person can get you off course. It could be like, you got to be careful, because Neptune can get you off course. Uranus can be more so get you off course by some sudden situation, something, you were on the path to something, all of a sudden your partner's like, oh, we're going to move across the country, and now you have to leave your job that you were about to get a good promotion for, right? Something like that. But Uranus can also, sometimes some people can maybe not take your ambitions seriously. The person could have a different alignment of like views and that of like, well, no, that's not life. You don't have to work hard just to get this one thing. Like, why don't you just explore, experience, have freedom? But Uranus could also be a positive disruptor. Again, it depends on what else is happening in the people's relationship and their charts. Like, Uranus could be the person that frees you from this goal that you thought you had to stick to, and it really is like, no, your North Node is in the 5th house. Your North Node is in 3rd. You don't even need to focus on the 10th house as much as someone else, right? So again, all of this is relative to what else is happening within the charts. Now, Pluto, I'm going to do Mars. I think I forgot Mars real quick. Pluto can represent, you might owe your transformation to this person. This person can have a really strong influence over your career, but it could be good or bad. It could be, a person where it's like they have a lot of pull, they have a lot of hold. They're, it's because of them that you're in a certain situation for good or bad. The Pluto person could also have influence with powerful or influential people, and so they can pull a lot of strings for you in those things, in those situations, in alignment with your goals or the ways in which you seek to receive acknowledgement and accolades from the world in terms of the things that you're doing. So the Pluto person, again, could also just be really more intense. This could be a person where they're able to, navigate difficult things and influence you to also take those same risks. I did leave out Mars. It's not in order now, but the Mars person coming to the 10th house person can be one in which there is more, it could be competitive. They could be competing with you in terms of goals, careers. You can always feel like, there's some type of disconnect there. The Mars person can also be the ones, I always just talk about Mars in Synastry can light the fire. They're active. Mars is the activator of action, of, well, you've been waiting long enough, let's do it, right? So Mars sometimes, but conflict doesn't always have to mean you're butting heads. It can mean that the Mars person is coming there to remind you, like, work has to get done. You've been sitting on this idea for a while. You've been doing this for a while. Or they kind of push you into something in terms of like career, where you're like, oh no, I don't want to go for a promotion. Oh no, I don't want to do that role. Oh no, I'm not ready for this. But the Mars person, like, well, it doesn't matter because right now here's where the opportunity is and this is what you need to do. But again, you just have to watch out that it's not the Mars type where there's a competitiveness. Because competitiveness can sometimes be not bad when two people actually respect each other and they're competitive and they still motivate each other. That competition can be positive, but when someone's trying to one up you all the time in a relationship, friendship, work dynamic, whatever the case may be, that could be negative. Why the 11th house may be important in your synastry. So the 11th house, it can be which ways do you view and experience social networks, societal types of topics, community, friendships, group oriented types of topics. So the 11th house can be important for you to understand how a person can impact you in that regard. Okay. Again, we talk about synastry. Always look at the whole chart, look at each other's. I'm not able to give people readings via TikTok, but what I will say is it's more than just one thing. So you would want to look at multiple aspects. Okay. So the sun. Okay. The sun. So the sun being, their sun being in someone's 11th house to represent personal qualities that the person has may fit within the way the house person views friendship. So let's say someone's got Cancer in the 11th house. The sun person, maybe the sun in Cancer person coming to someone's 11th house could mean like you're receptive. The 11th house person is receptive to the way in which the Cancer person embodies themselves. It does not mean that they are a Cancer or they're trying to be like a Cancer, but it seems like, okay, this is someone that has similar views as me, or someone that views networking or social things in the same way. This is someone I feel like we have similar social principles and ideals. Okay, so the sun person can bring like, okay, that personality, it fits. I could be friends with them. Maybe they're not someone I would have grown up with, or maybe we're from a different background, but like I can see myself being around them. Now, Cancer in 11th house would be a little bit different in terms of background, because a lot of times you can see a lot of people with Cancer energy in 11th house have a similar background from their friends, but that's a different conversation. Moon. All right, moon. The closeness, there could be closeness based on the person supporting the house person through, what I mean is like social acceptance, which is very important, especially early on in life, but just in general, in some way for people to feel a sense of, people accept me. Your family may or may not accept you, but for the most part, people are somewhat accepted by their families. Not everybody, but you get what I'm saying. Like, you're born into the family and they tolerate you. Sometimes some people just tolerate each other. But 11th house is different because you get to seek out people who aren't tied to you for acceptance, for belonging, right? And so the moon person, there's social acceptance through the moon person. The moon person brings like, no, you're okay. Like, no, like, I want you to come. I want you to be here. Like, right. Like, they might invite you to things. They may make you feel special when you're around them, when you're in the friend group. They don't ignore you. That's a very interesting dynamic there of that moon person, of not ignoring. You get into a group, and then, some people start talking to some people, but the moon person, if they have a connection to you, typically you might see there's a closeness there, and they won't ignore you or forget that you're there. Mercury. The Mercury person brings good conversation. It may not be overly personal. It's not that y'all are going to share deep, dark secrets unless there's other placements in the chart. But there could be shared outlooks on topics around, social things, social aspects. You feel that this person's able to bring different topics up to you. You can talk about almost anything, things that are outside of you. You have shared principles, shared ideas. You communicate very well. You may communicate very well, have similar points of view on certain things that are outside of your personal experiences. Venus, shared associates. The Venus house, even though the Venus is coming to the house person, there could be shared associations. You might belong to the same group, the same organization. That's how you may meet. Social activities, events, something that you both like or appreciate. You could meet at that particular function, something that you both care about or have poured into or that you are a part of. Okay, Jupiter. The Jupiter person can expand the social group of the house person. They can invest in your business ideas. Remember, traditionally, especially 11th house is also this association of business. That was considered to be something favorable. And so the Jupiter person can increase your social capital. They in some way make you more, they're more aware of you. Because of that association, there's a lot of hype or excitement. Can sometimes be. The Saturn person can want the 11th house person sometimes to take their friendships more seriously. They could put like boundaries. They could put like certain like limitations on certain things, meaning like, hey, I don't think you should hang out with them. Or, I don't know if you noticed, but that person's not really your friend. The Saturn person wants you to make more responsible decisions in terms of what you associate yourself with, who you associate yourself with. Even in terms of like, you should belong to this group, or you should apply to do this, or you should apply to do that. Or, if you should join the frat, you should join the sorority because it is, this and that. Like Saturn people come into your 11th house. They were like, I want you to be like, you should do this thing or be a part of something to legitimize yourself. So Saturn can sometimes bring that. The Saturn person can bring this kind of like, well, don't just hang out with people just to hang out with people. Why don't you do it in order to really build up your reputation or build something up about yourself? And sometimes limitations depending on the person. Mars, sorry, I didn't go in order. I keep forgetting Mars. A Mars person could encourage the house person to be more social, invite you to places, hang out with their friends, like hang out with my friends, come do this with me. Or, where Saturn is more so legitimize yourself, join this group or be a part of this because it can help you elevate, or help your reputation. The Mars person is more like, just do it. Let's just get out there. Let's just get, active. Why don't you try this? Why don't you go here? Yeah, we're having this event here. Like Mars is more the activity. It is more the impulse. It is more the, energy around getting up and moving and doing something. Again, the sign would be important because we would see like what the Mars trait would be important, like what sign it's in. But that's what Mars can do. Uranus can bring new awareness or dynamics in friend groups. So the Uranus person can bring more like, exposure to people that you might not have been friends with before. Talking to you about different things that are societal based, understanding those types of concepts more. Exposure to events, things that are social, things that are community based, things that deal with the group. It's like, like we talk about Uranus, rebellion, revolution, but also Uranus just in terms of group dynamics. Impacts that part of your life. Also, they could do things where they're like, eclectic folks, they introduce you to people and situations that kind of bring, a new sense of awareness. It takes you out of your comfort zone, right? Neptune. The Neptune person can influence your sense of idealism in terms of the area of the 11th house of your associations, so it could be friendships, it could be groups, it could be, wanting your, even in terms of friendship, the Neptune person may want you to understand how to heighten your sense of understand the right people to be around, people that are influential, people that are, we care about you. We want to help you out. You have to be careful. I don't want this to be negative, but I talk a lot about being careful with 11th and 9th house placements, Neptune or Uranus, especially if there's both, in terms of idealism, cult type behavior, get someone getting you to believe in something so much that you don't touch reality. Okay. So I'm not saying the Neptune person in the 11th house would be bad, but it's like, there could be some of that going on. But also chance meetings. Like I went to this place by myself, but I met my best friends at this event. Because remember, Neptune can deal with this idea of fate. things that are not planned but are meant to happen. So it could be, I didn't even want to go to this conference. I went to this conference and I met these people and now we're friends and we have a good social network, or these people introduced me to this. So Neptune can also be helpful in terms of like things that are meant to happen. But I always talk about the flip side as well. Pluto. The Pluto person coming to the house person can completely transform, change your sense of associations for good or bad. It could be a bad experience. It could be like growing up, Pluto sometimes can be transformative, negative, devastating. A bully, could be someone that was bullying behavior, which shifted your ability to trust in groups. Also could be, bring chaos to the friend group. A Pluto person can bring chaos or bring something where it's like sneaky and sneak attacks. Because sometimes Pluto can kind of merge and get up in something, and that's a very psychological type of energy when we're dealing with Pluto. But again, it all depends. Pluto can just also be highly, highly influential. And if you are in the right setting among the right friend groups, then Pluto could be that Pluto person coming to someone's 11th house could be helpful in terms of them even changing and transforming what they view as bonds. If you're someone that just used to follow the crowd, it could be a positive Pluto influence, but I also want us to look and be realistic about what also that Pluto energy could represent. 12th house synastry. Now, I like talking about the 12th house. So disclaimer, I answer questions, but I don't interpret charts via TikTok unless I do a special agreement to showcase someone's birth chart to help everybody else learn. So I can't answer, is this person the one for you? Okay, that's a reading, but not even a reading, because I think that's a very vague question, and I think there's too much layers to that. But anyway, 12th house. Speaking of hidden layers, 12th house. So there can be ideas around soul contracts, what is left unsaid, what is left undone. We're talking about synastry with the 12th house. The 12th house has been a house associated with this idea of karma, self-undoing, things that are not in the open, things that are confusing and nebulous. But there can be beauty within the 12th house. I say that all the time as someone with 12th house placements. We are not going to doom and gloom the 12th house, because if we do that, then what are you supposed to do? If you believe everything is horrible in the 12th house, so you're just supposed to what? Just give up and not achieve anything? So I don't want to go on a rant. Right? We're not just going to look at it as like this is a horrible house and nothing can be done. It's acceptance, understanding what's hidden, and learning to embrace it. But Sun. The Sun person can see what you're hiding. The Sun person sees what the house person is hiding. The Sun person may embody the traits that the person deep down the 12th house has, but just hasn't shown up into the world yet with, showcasing that part of themselves. Okay. The moon person can nurture the part of the house person that they deny. The inner emotions of them, they can pull those out. They see it as worth protecting. Like, no, your feelings are valid. No, what you have is valid. So this idea of moon and protection there. Mercury, the Mercury person can read between the lines of what the house person says or does not say. Sometimes you can see like a psychic connection, maybe almost, but they know there's more. The Mercury person knows there's more. They may encourage introspection of the house person to engage more in introspection. One-to-one conversations can be very important with this synastry. It's kind of, what are you really thinking type of question. Venus can represent, the Venus person can be a secret admirer of the house person, or envisions or sees partnership, or simply sees something of value within the 12th house person ready to be discovered, or something they want to understand a little bit more, right? Because they can feel allured, or they can feel drawn to it. Examples like a Venus in Scorpio. The Venus in Scorpio person in someone's 12th house could definitely be that, right? I see and sense there's something deeper in this person that I want to pull out, or that I want to understand a little bit more. So I'm willing to partner with them. I'm willing to understand them. I'm willing to, engage with them so that I can see what, if we're on the same page. Mars. The Mars person is there to embolden your hidden strengths. And so the Mars person may, in a not conscious way, unconsciously act in a way to help the house person wake up, look what I'm doing. Or, the house person can do something, and then all of a sudden, the Mars person and the house person, all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, I can do that too. Or I know I've always wanted to do it, but I didn't know how to, right? So this awakening of something that's hidden, that's not open. Jupiter. The Jupiter person can bring their own sense of wisdom to the person's inner world. The Jupiter person can, teach or show them a hidden gift. The Jupiter person sometimes can shed light on something that the 12th house person is not always willing to understand, showcase, or admit. The Jupiter person can bring a sense of awakening. There is some type of like teacher-student relationship sometimes when you're dealing with Jupiter aspects, Jupiter synastry type of situations. But they're there, and again, it doesn't have to always be a spiritual teaching, but the Jupiter person provides or sheds light onto the 12th house person's maybe hidden talents, the things that they're good at. The Jupiter person is very enthusiastic about the 12th house person, even when they want to hide certain things about themselves. They see it. Saturn. The Saturn person may teach or show the 12th house person the importance of sacrifices, facing reality. Get yourself out the dumps. Nope. I understand you're sad. I understand you dealt with a lot of difficulty, but you got to get out of that dream world. Don't stagger. Don't linger. The Saturn person, it's not that they're trying to be, negative or insensitive, but Saturn's role there is to help the person understand the situation of navigating your goals and the things that you want out of life without pitying yourself. Right? There's more to that. I can't go into detail, but Uranus can represent, the Uranus person has a bold sense of freedom in terms of how you access your dreams. The house person, the Uranus person may say like, you need to try something new. You need to do something that you haven't done before. The Uranus person understands the importance of, they stir up what's already in you, what's already there. So it's not that in this case, it's not that the Uranus person is introducing you to something brand new. It's that they are providing that spark. They're lighting it, right? Like there's something they're willing to do or show you that kind of unearths this maybe potential that you have. And it's like this, we talk about Uranus energy sometimes, is that genius, hidden genius energy. It can be very potent when it's directive and it knows what it's trying to aim for. So Uranus can be really helpful in that. You can't hide anymore. Uranus energy, you can't hide anymore. Like, you're good at this, or, why don't you try this? They're sparking something up, and they might do something. And it doesn't always have to mean they're intentionally doing it either. It could simply mean that's their influence. That's their role in their life. They're there to, an example could be someone signing someone up for a contest that they didn't even, like, I didn't mean to do that, but you always dreamed of doing this. Why did you sign me up for that, right? Like the Uranus person, like, and again, it's not about time. Uranus energy, Neptune, 12th house, none of that's about time at all. So it's not anything planned. So the Uranus person could do something spontaneous and that really supports the 12th house sense of dream, right? And again, it depends on what else happened in that chart, because somebody could have had a negative experience with this and say, this person disrupted what I really wanted. But again, the 12th house, you have to actually understand and know what you want in the first place. That's a whole different conversation. Neptune. The Neptune person, now this is where I can talk a little bit more about like spirituality, soulmate energy. I don't want people to overdo the soulmate thing. I think some people romanticize it to the point where you don't actually know what's happening in front of you because you want a soulmate so bad. So I always want to be careful with that conversation. But with the Neptune person, like, there could be spiritual undertones that you're bringing to the person. This is someone you're meant to meet. Does not mean you're necessarily there to be together forever, but like there's maybe a spiritual lesson that you are having, that you are meant to come in contact with this person. And the Neptune person kind of leads that in some regard. They're the house person. Pluto. So Pluto can represent discovery of something that you may have hidden deep within. The Pluto person can unearth things that you did not realize were strengths of yours. Things that were triggers of yours, things that have been difficult, heavy weights. But again, with the 12th house, it's things that are hidden that we are trying to understand how to best navigate and use them. So that way we are aware of the ways in which we show up, right? We're not talking about the 8th house type of Pluto energy. We're talking, that's more the transformative, nature of like dealing with things that have already happened, all that. 8th house are things that have happened typically, right? These are things that are experiences. We're talking about the emotional experiences, right? With the 12th house, it's like highly psychological as well. 8th house is psychological. The 12th house psychology of it is not so much psychological as it is this idea of transforming your soul. And so Pluto here can represent, this has an impact on the way in which you look at things from a soul level, through an evolution level, in terms of your ability to understand things beyond, not just beyond the surface, but things that are more metaphysical, things that are more divine in nature. So a person's Pluto in someone's 12th house can be very, very important for you to understand the things that you are hiding from, things that you may even need to confront, things that you may have an opportunity to really build up your sense of emotional vulnerability through accessing things that aren't visible to you. That Pluto person can stir that Pluto right. And again, it could be paranoia, it could be learning to trust yourself is definitely a 12th house thing. 8th house is not necessarily learning to trust yourself. You already do. Typically the 8th house is why you protect yourself so much. The 12th house is really when you're learning to lean in and trust those experiences that you're having that aren't things that are linear. These are not assignments that anyone is giving you when you're dealing with 12th house energy. It is really understanding the undercurrents of things and like, oh wow, because of this, I don't show this. That's what 12th house is. And you know, I can go to tangent of 12th house. Because of this experience that I had, I don't show this to the world, and really learning to really unpack that.